Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be talking about the long-range forecasting for the box office for The Batman, and why and how it is possible for this to be the next billion-dollar film, following, of course, the massive success of Spider-Man No Way Home. We'll talk about what that chance looks like and what the numbers are saying, and try and give a little bit more nuance to the discussion. Before going any further, though, please make sure that you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So this is coming from Box Office Pro, which, just as a bit of an update, I mentioned this in yesterday's box office preview, that some of the numbers were subject to change up until last night, and the numbers have stood, and so therefore Jackass Forever is set to make around $26 million in that range, and Moonfall is set to make around $11 million. But that's not why you clicked on this video. You clicked on it because you said, wait a minute, Odin, you said the Batman could make $1 billion? Well, yes, it very well could at this point. And it really comes down to this. This is, again, the earliest range that we have so far. This film is not set to come out for another month, all right? So there's still another month of prep. There's still another month of media campaigns. There's still another month of rumors to come out. There's still another month of controversies to come out. So a lot of things can happen between now and the release date of this film that could either tick up these numbers or tick down. But the projections for the opening weekend, at least domestically, of The Batman is expected to be around $135 to $185 million, which will not only make it a very impressive opening weekend domestically, but also one of the best Warner Brothers opening weekends in about 2 years because of, one, the pandemic shutting down theaters for a long period of time, and two, because of the terrible day-and-date release model that Warner Brothers did, in, of course, the midst of also releasing a lot of either bad or subpar films to boot. This is going to be really one of their first films to be released purely theatrically, without the day-and-date model, and of course have enough name recognition and enough hype around it based on the trailers to be able to actually garner the type of attention that one would expect from a similar film. So The Batman, Robert Pattinson starring Batman, expected to make around $135 to $185 million in its opening weekend, and they have the long-range forecast of the entire domestic run being somewhere between $340 and $540 million domestically. And I think that number is most importantly of all, is that this is all dealing with the question of how much will it make overseas. If this film is able to kind of, reach up in numbers, is able to really build up even more hype. I think a lot of people are very hyped for this film. I know I see a lot of people in the comment section of the videos talk about how excited they are for this film. I was even asked on a recent live show, what do you think the next billion-dollar film would be? And I looked at this film and I looked at what the, what knowledge we had at the time, and I said, hey, I don't know necessarily if this is going to be that film. I think it could get to the $700-800 million range, but I don't know necessarily if it'll reach the $1 billion range. Well, this kind of changes things just a little bit. Again, these are, long-range projections, and so this very well could change. They base these numbers off of various factors, things like social media interactions, pre-sales, things of that sort. And so there is a formula for how they come up with these numbers, but these numbers also do change pretty rapidly and can sometimes swing pretty widely as well, especially as different events go on. Obviously, the mainstream box office media will continue to cry Omicron as a reason why films like Uncharted or Death on the Nile or the newest film set to come out this weekend, Moonfall, right? Why those films don't do as well, right? They'll cry that for films that do poorly, and then when films do well, they'll say, oh, well, I guess it's not as big a deal as we thought. And again, it's just all nonsensical, making excuses for studios putting out films that, again, a lot of people just don't really want to see in the first place. But The Batman is definitely an exception to that, because it is seemingly very much in the same vein as Joker, whereas the film Joker came out, made $1 billion without China. It was one of the most successful R-rated films of all time, and even without China especially. Now, that is where I think a big question mark is going to be as far as whether or not this film is able to reach the $1 billion mark, and that's going to be exactly where this film gets released and also what the rating of this film is. Now, this is a $100 million film, so this film needs to make around $250 million worldwide to break even. And based on those numbers and those projections, it looks like they expect this film definitely to make money. And so I would say that it's a pretty safe assumption that this $100 million film will definitely be a box office success, which is interesting because this film is expected to have a very long runtime, and that typically has been used as an excuse as to why films have either not done as well or why films have flopped in the past, as, oh, the runtime has been so long. People are willing to go see long movies if it is seemingly a movie that is actually worth seeing. Here we have a Matt Reeves directed film. Matt Reeves has, again, at least somewhat of a pedigree when it comes to making films that people have overall enjoyed. So, he's done the Planet of the Apes franchise, which I personally was a pretty big fan of. At least he did the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He also did War for the Planet of the Apes. So I thought that both of those films were fantastic. Dawn, I think, is probably still the best. He just directed that one. War for the Planet of the Apes was pretty good. He also wrote that one. So he's definitely coming off of a couple of pretty successful films. He also directed Cloverfield, which I actually was also a fan of. He's got a lot of credits, therefore, in his filmography that make him a very capable director to handle the type of source material that we would find in a film like this. And so it's going to be very interesting just to see exactly how all of this pans out and exactly how much money this is able to make in its opening weekend. Let's just go ahead and see if we can see anything about the actual release of this film, because obviously that is incredibly important. As it says, in January 2022, this is, I think, a key factor. The Batman received a PG-13 rating, despite wide speculation and internal discussions at Warner Brothers that its somber tone and violent content would lead to it being the first theatrical Batman with an R rating. The film was able to receive PG-13 rating because it does not include excessive profanity or nudity. Rebecca Rubin of Variety opined that an R rating could have hurt the box office potential, but again, that is just not true. It's so funny that the person who used that, this Rebecca Rubin from Variety, used films like Birds of Prey and The Suicide Squad as examples. Well, both of those films sucked. That's why those films didn't make money. If you want to talk about an actual film doing well, let's go to Joker, where you actually have an R-rated film making over $1 billion. So yeah, you can have a successful film, not to mention, of course, that film costing so little money in comparison. But again, I digress. As we all know, media shills love to try and make as much excuses for the film as possible. As it says here, The Batman is scheduled to be released at Warner Brothers in the United States on March 4th and will be available 45 days later on HBO Max. And so they are having that window, right? They are having that window available where some people who may want to wait, some people that may want to decide not to go to a theater if they hear certain things about the film, can put that off if they want to. However, as I just pointed out, this film is expected to do quite well, even regardless of that. Now, one thing I personally am interested in, of course, is are they going to release this film in China? Again, Warner Brothers has notoriously had a lot of releases come out in China, working very well hand in hand with China in the past. We all know how I have very clear thoughts about China because, well, Chinese Communist Party runs the country and they are all about human rights violations, and that is that is an understatement of the century because of their wiping out of actual peoples, etc. But let's go ahead and see if there are any official release dates for China set at this point, because that could be a major indicator. So it's getting a wide release in a wide variety of countries all around the same time, which will be very good as far as being able to make some predictions on the film pretty early. This film's latest release so far is set to be Japan on March 11th, so it's going to have a week delay in Japan. But as we're seeing right now from IMDb at the very least, there is no set release date for China, which for me I think is a good thing because it means that means millions of dollars will not be going to the Chinese Communist Party. However, many are going to argue saying, yes, but what does that mean for the worldwide chances of the Batman? Does that mean that it can't hit $1 billion without China? Well, Joker is a clear example that that is not the case. So not only is this film set to make a lot of money, not only is this film not releasing in China, not only is this film expected to make almost $500 million just in America alone, rather just in the domestic market alone, which would include Canada, which finally has theaters reopening. Hopefully, the Great Honkening, by the way, shout out to the truckers and the Great Honkening. Hopefully they are able to lead to openings in various parts of that country so that people can actually, live again, because, basic human rights and everything. But it is also a movie that is PG-13, which means it's going to be a lot more easily accessible, even at a longer runtime, to more audiences, whereas Joker was much more limited. Now, if this film's reviews, especially from audiences, if the word of mouth for this film is positive, I can't see how this film doesn't make $1 billion, even in the midst of the pandemic, even in the midst of all the excuses that could be possibly used for a film like this not doing well. I think that this film, if the word of mouth is strong, if the film actually delivers, if the film's able to deliver on that runtime, which, as I said, with Matt Reeves behind it, seems to be a likely chance, unless Warner Brothers has its hands all up involved in it. We know how Warner Brothers loves to do that, and when they do, it leads to some pretty bad films. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the long run. But if you had to ask my guess at this point in time, I would say, yeah, I think this film has a decent chance. I think this film definitely has a decent chance. So again, these box office numbers are very impressive early on. Still a month out, though. So what do you think is going to be the final result? Do you think we're going to see this $135 to $185 million opening weekend domestically? I imagine that would probably lead to around a $300+ million opening weekend in the international marketplace, which would be incredibly strong. Again, we would definitely be talking about comparisons between that and Spider-Man No Way Home at that point. And also, do you think that the film could reach the $340 to $540 million domestically that's expected? And also, of course, the number one question, do you think this will be the next billion-dollar film? I think that there's definitely a chance. This film definitely has a chance, whereas beforehand it was up in the air. Now that we have some actual numbers based on, again, some data. Again, I don't think it's reliable data personally because it's just social media interactions and pre-sales. And as you all know, I'm all about, it's all about who shows up on the day, buying their ticket on the day, buying their ticket maybe a day in advance, right? Usually we have that as being a big part of it. Having worked at the box office, I know how many people buy their tickets on the day of release and don't buy their tickets in advance. A lot of people do, but not all people. And I think that is going to be a major factor, a major indicator of the success of this film is how many people show up on the day. And again, that is, of course, the indicator for all films in the long run, but also what the word of mouth on this film is going to be. If it's able to deliver, knowing Matt Reeves is behind this project, he's got a good track record there. I think it's got a pretty decent chance there. And again, written in part by Matt Reeves and Peter Craig, who, let's see, the films that he's done. He has done the story for Top Gun Maverick. He has also done Bad Boys for Life, 12 Strong, Bloodfather. He's also done the last two, and they also did The Town. So again, I guess he's got a couple of good films to his name and a couple of mediocre films to his name. So again, that concerns me somewhat, but seeing that it's only two writers there and not a plethora of writers that often at time can attach these types of films, and also only having a $100 million budget, which you might say only $100 million, again, that's a good thing because this, based on the numbers and the projections, $250 million worldwide is what it would need to break even. This is saying that the film's going to make that and much more. So will it make $1 billion? How much profit will it make? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, slap that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members, starting off with Patreon animation commentator Brandon, let's go Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Fuzz Aldrin, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Hymir Ari Hymason, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyles 79, Laura, The Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody. On to June. Orange Hat Reviews. Out of Step with Reality. Priscilla Hall. Rosetta Ellen. Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, or Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Benden, Tina Bojan, and Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. Also to my Subscribe Star peeps, UAB Mad Dog, which is Mr. Mike Jackson, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand For, John B, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the Subscribe Star platform. And to my 3 local supporters, we got Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, which is once again Mike Jackson, super supporter over there, and Robert Barnes. Thank you very much for supporting me over on the Locals platform. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, please think about signing up on either of those platforms. You can find a link in the description below that will lead you to all of those different pages. It is known as the Willow link, as it is w.lo link, and it will have all of the links to that, to the Discord channel, to all different kinds of places, including places to support me as well. At the Citizen of Asgardian level, you get Citizen of Asgardian level is how it's labeled on Patreon. Still need to fix that, but Citizen of Asgard level, you get a shout out at the end of every live stream and video. If you join at the Army of Asgard level, you also access to a giveaways channel, which is featured on the Discord that I have. I know, River, it is very exciting. It is so exciting, where you get giveaways for things like 4K titles, Steelbook titles, etc. Again, I got some 4K Steelbooks of The Punisher, for instance. I've got 4Ks of tons of other movies, so I'm giving those away all the time. So if that sounds interesting to you, join the Army of Asgard level. Also, at the Keep of the Bifrost level, you get all of that stuff, plus you get access to a once a month and maybe twice a month. We're trying to add an extra podcast in there of me and John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where we talk about movies. And also, you get to ask your questions. Any questions that you want to ask, you get to ask with that podcast. And then you have the Chosen of Valhalla level, which gives you access to all of those. And also a once-a-month podcast where you get to be featured with me on the main channel. We all get to talk together about movies, culture, pop culture, anything really that the Chosen want to talk about, or anything the Chosen want to promote is on the table. So if you like that, join at the Chosen of Valhalla level. Also, during your first month of support, you get a free t-shirt. Any t-shirt that you want from the main store, you get access to, and I do ship internationally anywhere in the world. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.